Artillery is the god of war, said Joseph Stalin, but we don't make enough of it in Australia. Let's find out why. So Ukraine fires up to 8,000 155mm artillery shells per day. 155 artillery shells, they're pretty big weapons. You can fire them a long range. They're about 40 or 50 kilos each. Huge artillery pieces. They're a mainstay in modern warfare because of the explosive power you can deliver on targets up to about 30 kilometers away. Problem is, we don't make enough of them and we need immense amounts of them on the battlefield. In fact, Ukraine goes through around 8,000 rounds a day, at least based on 2023 usage. Pretty intense rates of fire, and some officials have suggested they would need around 12,000 to 20,000 rounds if they're doing counter-offensive work. There's one problem: we don't make enough of them. So in Australia, we're contributing. We're building a factory that by 2028 should be able to produce 15,000 rounds per year. So we might, in 2 years, have enough rounds to maybe last a day in counter-offensive operations. It's just not enough. And this is a really simple piece of equipment to make. We're talking about a metal casing with explosives poured into it and a fuse. Like, this is not difficult stuff. This is how bad manufacturing and production is in countries at the moment, especially defense manufacturing, especially in Australia. Now, the rest of the world is taking steps to make sure this isn't the case. But the Australian effort, we've recognized we don't produce enough 155 rounds at all. We actually ship them in from South Africa. They cost around $3,000 to make. They're a really solid round. I think that's going to go down a lot as you scale it up. If you look at the raw components of 155 round individual pieces, it'd be worth almost nothing. Maybe $100 or $200 or something. But in Australia, they're actually expanding the Benalla Munitions Factory. It's not far out of Melbourne, where I live. Should I go pay a visit? Put a note in the comment if you think I should go out there and check it out and do a video on it. By 2028, they're expecting to have a facility that will produce about 15,000 rounds a year, with the ability, admittedly, to scale up to about 100,000 rounds per year. That's still pretty small. In comparison, in the US, there's a factory they're building soon in Arkansas, which is going to be able to ramp up to 100,000 rounds a month, which is pretty much what you need to be aiming at, I think, if you're aiming at stocks for a global conflict. Now, what's interesting is, even if you make these rounds, it's not a waste of money. These things can be used for training. They can also be exported offshore to other countries that need them for conflict or training. So, good idea to start building these factories and doing it really soon. The Benalla Munitions Factory is a defense initiative in partnership with Thales. They're building this factory. It's the first M795, that's the name for the artillery round, M795 forge outside of the United States. Quite a specialized designed round. It's got new explosives cooling materials in the forge and whatnot. It's just more water efficient. We're the first forge that's going to have that outside the United States, which is a great step for us. The problem is, these things we need to make so many of them for modern conflict, and we just don't have enough. Ukraine using 8,000 rounds per day. They reckon they could use a lot more if they can. Often there are shortages, which mean they can't. These aren't difficult to make. I had a look. I said, what are the production bottlenecks for these 155 rounds? Turns out it's actually a type of explosive they use to pour them in there. It's quite difficult to manufacture and to produce in large quantities. So as countries, we're going to need to make and stockpile as much of the raw materials for this stuff as we can to try and get ahead of this. In fact, check this out. Freedom's Forge. A couple of years ago, I saw the Australian Special Ops Commander in Hawaii. I was there on a speaking job, ran into the Special Ops Commander. My mate was basically his military assistant, and he was telling me, check this book out, Freedom's Forge. This is about America retooling in World War II to produce the manufacturing and the factories to produce everything they needed to become a global superpower in World War II. They needed the tanks, the planes, the artillery, the ammunition, everything. And they had to convert the vehicle manufacturing factories into these warplane production factories. And the issue I've got with Australia is, if we can't even produce 155mm artillery rounds, which are very basic, just a metal case with explosives filled in them, how on earth are we going to make the rest of the machines for war that we might need? Drones, artillery, tanks, cars, even complicated munitions that require really advanced parts. We're not going to be able to do it. It's actually too late to fix a lot of this stuff. I'm actually really concerned. We need to be onto it and onto it straight away. We need one of those Benalla manufacturing facilities in every single state. We need specialized storage in a conflict. These ammunition depots are going to be targeted by drones and sabotage and all those things. So we need to pour quite a bit of money into this. The government, and this is one of the main things that came out of that Freedom Forges book, the government and Franklin Roosevelt offered very long-term contracts to companies in order to commit the funding needed to produce these factories. And that's what private industry needs. They need a commitment from the government to start building these factories and holding facilities as quickly as they can. There's no point doing it, by halves. I think that they went as far as to offer a letter of intention. A letter of intention came from the government to these manufacturers and said, guess what? We're going to buy 2,000 tanks off you next month. Get building them right away. So it was a very informal process, but it was designed to spur on companies to get those animal spirits going, to get the manufacturing moving all in the direction of a huge war effort to overrun the opponents to the Axis. And they did. America ended up producing millions and millions of all sorts of war machines in order to support the Allied war effort. And the rest is history. So Australia needs to be doing exactly the same thing. Now, in the United States, at the moment, they've actually got, at the start of the Ukraine war, they only had one factory. They were producing about 14,000 rounds a month in one factory. Now, production since then has about quadrupled. There's a new factory being opened by General Dynamics. They make the round in Camden in Arkansas. And the Pentagon said 2 new filling and assembly lines will be capable of producing up to 50,000 shells per month once they achieve full operational readiness. This facility is part of the US Army's coordinated efforts to increase the monthly production of 155 shells to 100,000 units. I think that's about right. I think we need to be aiming at a really high production capacity per month. And I think in Australia, we're going to need to have a fair few of these facilities going. They need to be automated. They need to run around the clock. And they need to have the storage and protection and hardening to be able to store a lot of explosives to do it. So America's onto this. They've kind of caught onto the fact that they need to have all this stuff set up, and they're building it now. The earlier point I made, we need to make far more complex machines than this. We're not going to be able to do it. If we can't make basic 155 rounds, we're not going to be able to make all the advanced equipment and componentry that comes with warfighting. So in government, they need to come up with ways to start incentivizing small firms to build defense-based industries right now, whether it's rifles, uniforms, doesn't matter what it is. In fact, they should get kill capture in there. We can build a few leather jackets, throw us a contract anytime. But that's what they need to do. They need to start doing it ASAP, because if they don't get it underway, it's going to be too late. And I feel sorry for anyone who's part of the government that presides over a manufacturing industry that is completely stalled. It's not just that. We need to have POL. So all our fuel, all our ammunition depots, they reckon our fuel would run out in about 7 days. I think it's a bit longer than that, but perhaps about 7+ days. If we're in a full-on conflict, we just don't have enough of it onshore. So we need strategic reserves. Americans are pretty good at this. They built a tank, some fuel tanks, I think it was in Pearl Harbor, that stored something like the volume of the Statue of Liberty worth of fuel. Like, you need a lot of fuel to be able to operate a war machine in the event that something happens. You just want that self-sufficiency. At the moment, we don't have it. It's going to take years to build. Heck, it's going to take 2 years for us to be able to build 15,000 rounds a year, which is about 2 days worth of offensive munitions in a peer-to-peer conflict. We're in a bit of trouble. Should I go have a look at the Benalla Munitions Factory? Let me know. I had a bit of an absence recently. I've been quiet because I've been writing a book for you all. Subscribe here so you can hear more information about it as this book comes out. It's in pretty good shape. I'm excited about it. Don't forget to subscribe.